So I think what I want you to do, all of you, to imagine that you are a storyteller. Is that possible? Can everybody imagine that you are a storyteller and believe that you are the director of the next social impact film that you're creating? So I want you to sit on this director's chair that you see on the screen. And imagine that you are the storyteller of the next social impact film that's going to make waves in the social sector. Close your eyes for 2 minutes. Let's sort of go into that space. Imagine that you are this storyteller. And then I want you to also sort of reflect on who your audience is. For those of you who still have your eyes closed, you can open it. I want you to sort of imagine, if you are a storyteller, who is your audience? So if you are a communications professional in the social sector, who's the audience that you're speaking with? Is it a donor? Is it a stakeholder? Is it somebody that, is it maybe a CSR? So just imagine who your audience is. And then I want you to sort of think for a moment, what is it that you want to communicate to this audience? What is the one thing that you want to communicate to this audience? So if you can just focus on that a little bit, it'll be really nice. So if you have any answers, I'm very, very happy to see. Can we sort of spend a moment thinking about this? Because this is really, really important, right? What is the one thing as filmmakers, as storytellers, that we want to communicate to our audience? Can you type in the chat box, guys? So the one thing that I am looking for is impact. So I think as people working in the social sector, the one thing we really want to communicate to our audiences is impact. The second piece that I want to ask you is, apart from the message, what is the feeling that you want to leave your audience with? So do you want the audience to feel happy? Do you want the audience to feel moved? Do you want the audience to sort of open their purse and donate quickly? Or do you want the audience to experience the pain of the person that you're portraying in the film? What is it that you really want your audience to feel? So let's also spend a moment thinking about that. I'm going to pause just so that we can take it all in. We can think of what is that one message we want to give our audience? What is the feeling that we want to give our audience? So let's spend a moment on that. So based on that, I think I really want to come to the two principles of social impact filmmaking. The two key principles of social impact filmmaking, all of you, is one, if you're able to really communicate our project impact. So most of us here who've been working for NGOs or CSRs or even comms professionals who are part of social projects, you do, of course, work on impact, right? You do make a difference to the people who are on the field. So it's really about being able to communicate this impact. That's the key message that you want to leave with your audience. And the second most important principle is really moving this audience. How are you able to move this audience to ensure that you're able to make them feel? So it's really an interplay of the heart and the brain. You want them to receive the impact in the brain, and you want to move audiences by actually creating a feeling within them, right? So let's go back to the director's chair, right? Let's go back to the director's chair and let's sort of ask ourselves a question. What is the first thing that you would do as a director? Let's reflect. So if you are a director, would you first think of writing a script? Or would you first say, no, I'm just going to take that camera and go to the field and shoot? What is it that you will do as the director? So I think what we do when we're working in the social impact space is that when we're making films, the first thing that we do is we really go to the field. Why do we go to the field? We go to the field because we believe that when we are making a film, especially in the social impact space, because it is in the form of a documentary, because it is something that is real, it's very important to really see where these real stories are. So what's most important is to go to the field and do your auditions, really meet real people, meet people who are your beneficiaries, who can be the real heroes of your story. So these are three very, very sweet, empowered people that we met on the field in 2022. We met a lot more, but I'm just going to show you some of these. So the one you see here, the first picture is Manisha. So Manisha is a pregnant woman she was a pregnant woman who's just delivered a baby. She is one of the beneficiaries of one of the projects that we worked with. Here you see another lady. She is Sarojini. She is actually an A&M, or an auxiliary nursing midwife, who actually worked with Manisha very closely. Lady who's not from this location, which is Rajasthan, but from another location called Chandrapur in Maharashtra, where she's actually a woman farmer. She is somebody who works in the space of agriculture. She's a woman farmer. She has her own land, and her name is Saminder. So what we really see as tenet one in social impact filmmaking is identifying local heroes, right? We need to identify people on the field who can really lend a social voice to the film. So that's tenet one. Again, let's go back to the director's chair and ask ourselves the next question. Now that you've found your real hero, what is it that you're going to do next? Are you going to again go take the camera to the field, or hire a videographer or a cameraman and go to the field, or are you going to do something more? So the next thing we believe is very, very powerful and very, very important is to be able to convert these real heroes into very powerful characters, which involves writing these characters. Why do we do that? That's tenet two. Writing powerful characters inspired by the field, right? So once you find your local heroes, the focus is really to transform these heroes into powerful characters so that these stories can actually go on to lend more meat, more character, and more meat to the film. So it's really about writing these powerful characters. So when we met Saminder Bodgil, we said, okay, she is a farmer. When we met Manisha, we said, okay, she is a pregnant woman. But let's dive deeper. Let's understand what their story is. Let's really work towards going deeper, gaining more insights, and then we began writing the characters that they would play in the film. Of course, they will play themselves. So Manisha will be Manisha, or Saminder will be Saminder. But what is it within their story? What is it within their life story, or within their troubles, within their achievements? What is it that we can pick up and really form a character sketch, is something that we really focused on. So tenet 2 is writing powerful characters. Now, once you have the characters in place, once you've written that, the next question really is, how do you prepare these real life heroes for a film? So what I mean by that is, you found your real heroes, you've gone to the field, you've done a recce, you've done an audition, you've met these people, you've gained insights, you've written their characters, you've sort of also understood, okay, what are the key nuances within their character or nuances within their story that you want to highlight. But what do you do after that? Anybody in the chat box? I'm unfortunately unable to see the chat box, which is such a pity, but I want to do that anyway. Anybody in the chat box? Yes, prompt, a call to action, compelled to move, experience the pain, our work and impact. Okay, I see some answers there, but unfortunately, guys, this interaction may not be as effective because I'm not able to see the chat box when I'm presenting, but I'm going to keep this as interesting as possible. So keep your answers coming, because I have like wonderful people, part of my team, who are tracking that. So it's going to be helpful anyway. So yes, so what do you do really after the heroes and the characters have been made? What you do is you really work with these beneficiaries and coach them to be part of the film, to really be a voice in the film. So yes, you do have stories where there are beneficiaries in films. I think all of us have been part of the sector for a long time. We've seen multiple stories, we've seen multiple films. But what we really believe is important is when a particular beneficiary is in a film, it's important to be able to use their own voice. It's important to be able to use them as their real character in the film. Now, to be able to do that, it's very important to work with them, to coach them, to give them an idea of how this film will go on and make a larger impact in the lives of so many more, right? So it's really important for them to understand that the little role that they play for those 1-2 minutes of a film, how it's really making a larger difference. It's important to coach them on how to face the camera, how to speak, how to really be part of the story when the camera is on, how do you sort of speak into the mic, and small things like that, whether it's technical or whether it is really related to the script and the story, right? It's important to coach them so that they're part of this process in a more effective manner. What comes out is really real. So that's tenet number 3. which is coaching heroes to play their true avatar. So the importance of filming our local heroes in action. So the secret sauce really here is we've got the local heroes together, but if they're able to play their true characters that we've written for them effectively in the film, that's when we know we've made it. So for them to be converted from real heroes to true characters that we've written for them, it's important that we coach them effectively. So coaching is that secret sauce that plays a very important role here. Coming back to the fourth tenet. So last but not the least, how does it all come together? I'm again going off screen because I am dying to see what's on the chat. So if can anybody just tell me how it all comes together? So what is the last thing that's needed? I'm waiting for the chat box. So you've done your real heroes, you've done your characters, you've done your coaching. What is it that we need now? What is it that will make that film successful? If you are the director, if you're in the director's chair, what will you do? Can we get some answers there? Except Shankar and Swapna, everybody is allowed to answer. Is anybody here? There are no chats in the chat box. Are you all able to hear me? I think you are, right? Okay, I see some answers there. Thank you so much. Thanks, Anthony. I'm glad you can hear me. That's right, Pooja. Thank you so much. I'm glad we had that. The most effective quote or the script. So how it all comes together is the script. So that's when we really go into the writing of it, where we know now that we have a compelling character. We know we've coached them. But with all this, we need to really have a story that's gripping, a story that really holds the attention of our audiences. So Tenet 4 is creating a powerful and gripping narrative. When I say powerful and gripping narrative, it's really about the script. Once we identify the heroes, build them into powerful characters, coach them, it's really the scripting that comes into play. So that is most important, because the reason I say that also is because unless you have a script that's going to hold your audiences, you're not going to be able to make it. The reason I say that is there are times, when you watch a 1 hour film and you're not bored. But there are times when you watch a 4-minute film and you've lost attention in 2 minutes. Why does that happen? That happens because of the way the narrative has been put together. It happens because of the way the script has been written. So script writing, again, is the fourth tenet that plays a very, very important role. So with that, we come to the end of segment 1. So the reason we have lights, camera, action on the screen is because that's when you really go into the field and shoot, when you have all of that in place. So I'm going to play a couple of films for you that we made recently. They're very short. They're just about a couple of minutes. But the reason I want to play them is so that you are aware of what exactly is this process, and if you apply exactly this process where you go identify your real heroes, write those characters, coach them, help them face the camera, understand what they have to do, how they have to speak, etc. And then when you sort of put all of this into a script, how does it work? So I'm just going to play a couple of films for you.
मैं मनीषा हूँ और मेरी गर्भावस्था का दूसरा महीना चल रहा है। मेरी पहली गर्भावस्था में टेस्ट करवाने और दवाइयाँ लेने मुझे 20 किलोमीटर दूर जाना पड़ता था। वो इतनी लंबी और थका देने वाली यात्रा थी और मेरी स्थिति में तो जोखिम भी था। अब मेरी दूसरी गर्भावस्था में चीजें बेहतर हैं। मैं अपनी सारी दवाइयाँ और जरूरी टेस्ट यहीं पास से करवा सकती हूँ। एएनएम दीदी भी मुझे सलाह देती हैं कि कौन सी निवारक दवाइयाँ लें और उपचार जो मुझे कई रोग जैसे आयरन की कमी, कैल्शियम की कमी, कृमि संक्रमण, टिटनेस और मलेरिया से बचाए। जैसे किसान अपने फसल की देखभाल करते हैं, वैसे ही एएनएम दीदी मेरी देखभाल करती है। मेरे जैसी हर माँ को अगर अपने घर के पास बुनियादी गर्भावस्था देखभाल की सुविधा मिलती है तो कितना अच्छा होगा।
So what you saw was the story of Manisha. So Manisha was, like I said, she is a rural woman in rural Rajasthan, and as you saw her story, what we really did is we understood the problem that she was facing. So she really had a lot of trouble because in her first pregnancy she had to travel far away, etc. Now, what's interesting here is she spoke a lot. She spoke about a lot of problems, but I think to be able to nose out that one problem that will help really position the impact that the organization created is excessively important. So that's why we chose that problem related to her traveling far away, because we wanted to focus on the solution, which is the point of care tests, where the tests were available very close by to where she stays now for her second pregnancy. So that's one. I'm going to show you another film as well. So this is actually an A&M who has this is actually an A&M who was working very closely, Sarojini, like we spoke about, who was working very closely with Manisha to help her through her entire pregnancy. So let's see her perspective and her story.
मेरा नाम सरोजनी है। मैं 19 साल से एएनएम हूँ और आज भी मेरे में सीखने की चाह है। जपाइको संस्था द्वारा दिए गए वात्सल्य ट्रेनिंग में हमने सीखा कि कैसे गुणवत्तापूर्ण प्रसव पूर्व देखभाल प्रदान की जाती है। हमें क्लिनिकल असेसमेंट करने का प्रशिक्षण दिया गया, कौन सा परीक्षण करना है और पॉइंट ऑफ केयर परीक्षण किट का उपयोग कैसे करना है, क्या सही इलाज किया जाना चाहिए, कौन सी दवाइयाँ दी जानी चाहिए और गर्भवती महिला और उसके परिवारजनों को क्या सलाह देनी चाहिए। इस ट्रेनिंग ने मुझे बेहतर गुणवत्ता वाली प्रसव पूर्व देखभाल देने के लिए सशक्त बनाया है और मुझे आत्मविश्वास दिया है। अगर मेरे जैसी हर एएनएम को ऐसी ट्रेनिंग मिले तो क्या गांव-गांव में हर गर्भवती महिला को बेहतर सेवाएं नहीं मिलेंगी?
So what you really saw was the story of Sarojini, and what's again very interesting here is when we went and met Sarojini, she was so underconfident. She was so scared. When we did the recce, when we actually went to find the story, we actually met about 20 ANMs. We were looking for different people. Who is it that would fit the bill? Who is it that had a powerful story? And then once we met so many people, we saw that there were about 3 or 4 who were very promising. Sarojini was one of them, but she was very scared of facing the camera. She was very worried. She didn't know if, whether she'd look good, so many other people will see, because these are real people. These are beneficiaries who are on the field. They have zero exposure to cinema or documentaries, right? So it took a lot of energy and effort to really coach her and ensure that she was open and excited to face the camera when she finally did, and that you definitely see in the film, because she seems very comfortable at the end of it all. So I'm going to pause here to just see if we have any questions before we move on to the next segment. Do we have any questions? Yes. So there's somebody who says Sushmita is asking how to tell the story. So how to tell the story, that's a very interesting one. How to really tell the story is, I think the story automatically is available on the field. It's more than telling the story. What I really find very, very positive and to our advantage in the sector is that the stories are ready. They're available on the field. What we really need to do is go and find those stories. So it's not more than telling the story. It's about finding that story. Because when we go and interact with beneficiaries, there's something in every individual that you meet, right? It's really about working with them, interacting with them, going in depth, asking them the right questions, making them feel comfortable. Because end of the day, we come in as urban folks, or we come in as comms professionals, and that can be a little daunting or intimidating for them. So how do you really make yourself very, very down to earth, comfortable when you interact with them, make them open up, be empathetic, make them open up? And that's where the story is. It's really about finding the story first. When you do find the story, the process is super easy, because super easy, when I say it's very technical, but when I say easy, I think the meat is already there. That's what I mean. The story is already there with us. Then it's really about saying, okay, how do I sit and write a character? So the way we wrote the story, Sushmita, based on your question, is we said, okay, let's, end of the day, we want to communicate impact. So let's break down this whole piece into problem, solution, and impact. Let's highlight the problem. And you'll see it in some of the other films that we're showing, we'll be showing at the end of the session as well. Let's highlight the problem. Let's highlight what was the issue that that person was facing. So in Manisha's story, the issue or the problem was that she had to go far away, and that could be dangerous for her pregnancy. That could be dangerous for her health. It was inconvenient. It could be dangerous for her baby, right? So that's the problem. Then you come to the solution. So if there is a project intervention, or there is a particular intervention that happened in that area because of a project, and that solved the problem, you bring in the solution. So you say what changed. So in Manisha's case, what changed was all the tests were available at a close by center for her, right? So you'll see that that really helps bring about that transformation when you talk about problem and solution. And then the third most important thing is impact. Why impact? Is because end of the day, when you're talking to a donor, the session is called Filmmaking for Fundraising, right? The second part is about fundraising. When you're talking to a donor, they're not, while they will be moved by your story, they're not interested in one Manisha. They're not interested in one Saminder. What they're interested is in scale. What they're interested is in the quantitative numbers, the impact figures, and the qualitative aspects, right? So while you've communicated the change, it's also important to communicate the impact, the number, the largeness of the change that you brought about. So generally, when we come up with how to tell a story, if I have to answer that question, it's really in the space of problem, solution, and impact. Anybody else? Any other questions? Thanks, Sushmita, for your question. Any questions, or we can probably move on to the next part. In case there's a question, Shankar or Swapna, if you all can just copy and WhatsApp it to me, maybe I have better access that way. Okay, so I think one thing I really want to ask is, can you all still see my screen? Okay, there's one question that Abhishek asks, how can we be creative or unique once we find that story? That's such a beautiful question, actually. How can we be creative? See, let me be honest, when it comes to creativity, it's very, very important to really supply yourself with a lot of knowledge, supply yourself with maybe skills, maybe how creativity works, etc. I think one definite thing is maybe a deep dive into a workshop like this. Here we have just 60 minutes. So because we have just 60 minutes, we're just giving you a very quick orientation on how do you have impact storytelling going, how do you fundraise with impact storytelling and impactful audio visuals. So we're doing a very quick orientation. But if this were to be a deeper discussion, if this were to be a larger discussion, if this were to really be in the form of a workshop, creativity is difficult, but that's probably a way to upskill oneself through creativity. You can also work with storytellers, you can work with script writers. So you can have the seed of a creative idea, but it will be good to sort of onboard experts who have been doing it for 5-10 years, because that helps you tell a story better. Thank you for your question, Abhishek. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next segment because this is really, in my opinion, I think while it's great to be able to tell a good story, it's also very important on how you use the story. So while we created these stories, I think what works with us and what we really believe in is we need to be able to work closely with our clients or with organizations to be able to figure out how these stories can be used for better fundraising, right? Or for better conversations with donors. So that's really what the next segment is. But before I move on to that, I'm going to answer the next question by Snehanshu. Snehanshu says, how do you incorporate different programs into one storyline? So Snehanshu, I'll just answer that question by saying that before we even begin to tell a story, if you remember, I spoke about 2 principles and I spoke about 4 tenets. Even before the 2 principles, the first thing that we need to understand is what is the objective of the story that you're saying and who is the audience. Because of the reason I say that is because only if you know what your objective is will you be able to figure out whether you should bring in different programs or you should probably bring in only one program. Because anybody who's viewing anything, and this is the first rule of communication, if you're going to tell them too much, they're going to lose your attention. So it's very important that you tell them only one thing, the one thing that you want them to have focus on. So if you ask me, I would recommend, or my personal point of view is, one particular story should have only one narrative or one program. You make 6 small stories if you like. Instead of creating a 20-minute film, make 5 films of 4 minutes each. That probably would be more effective. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to X donor. X donor focuses on maternal and child health. So I will show X donor, the film, which is a 4-minute film on maternal and child health. Y donor focuses on diabetes or focuses on education, maybe a different sector altogether. Let me show the 4-minute film in that. That's always more effective because the objective of this session is fundraising. See, there are folks who make like a corporate film or an overall film that is 5-10 minutes, which has all their programs. But that's not effective for fundraising. That's just an overview that you're giving anybody who wants to know what you're doing. That's just an overview film. But if you're looking at it from a fundraising point of view, look at one project, look at one program, look at the impact you've created in that program over the years that you've worked in that program, or if it's a 5-year program, then that. And it's really about how you're going to communicate that effectively. I think that's key, because too much information is lost. There's one very beautiful quote that I heard recently. It was called, not able to remember. It was really about the core message of the quote was that too much is dangerous. Too much is dangerous. If you want quality, if you want impact, you just have to say less. So I wouldn't recommend all programs in one this thing. Sorry if that didn't make you very happy, but I wouldn't recommend that. Any other questions? Okay, so if there are questions, put them in the chat box. We'll come to them later. But before that, before I answer the questions, I want to just take you through the next part of the session. And I'm going to project this and then going to go off this slide so that I can see your responses in the chat box, which is, can you guys tell me who this person is? Please keep your answers coming in the chat box. Can everybody hear me clearly? If yes, then if you can just say yes. Do we have more answers coming in? Do we know who this person is? Can you hear me clearly? If yes, then if you can just say yes. Okay, so we have 3 answers. Tony Robbins. Yes, you can hear me. Amazing. Okay, awesome. So yes, it's Tony Robbins, and the reason why he's made it to this room today is because he is a powerful communicator. As some of you may know, he really is so effective in holding audiences together. He's able to make an impact when he communicates, and he does it in a way that it's powerful. So I want to just take a moment before we dive into this whole aspect of fundraising. I want to take a moment to say that if all of us, whoever we are, if we can just remove our professional hats, if we are a fundraiser, a communicator, if we are a storyteller, whoever we are, if for a moment we can all put on the hat of a fundraiser. If you are a fundraiser, if you are somebody who are talking to donors, if you are somebody who is interacting with anybody who needs to sort of put in money or write a check, or click a Google Pay button so that they can support your cause, then the one thing I think we all need to understand is you have to be a communicator. So fundraising and communication is very, very deeply tied to each other. And that's why I felt it's very important to bring this in as the first step to this part of this segment of the session, which is that communication is power. Who all believe communication is power? Can you just say yes in the chat box, please? Do you all believe communication is power? And why do you think communication is powerful? How can you make a difference if you are able to communicate better? These are questions that are very powerful and that really hold a lot of water when we're having a conversation around fundraising, right? So there is a quote that Tony Robbins said, which is it started with communication is power, and it said that all behavior and feelings find their original roots in some form of communication. So if I have to just break this down, what it really means is if anybody behaves in a certain manner or feels a certain thing, the root of that feeling or that behavior is based, the root of that feeling or that behavior comes from how somebody else communicates to them. So put yourself in the shoes of a fundraiser. How you communicate is going to make the donor feel a certain way and behave a certain way. Are everybody in agreement? Is everybody in agreement? Are we all on the same page? I'm going to repeat this in a different way, okay? What I'm saying is that everybody who behaves or feels in a certain manner, that takes root in how they've been communicated to. So if I'm communicating with you today, you may either feel bored, you may feel stimulated, you may find this conversation interesting, you may feel sleepy. Now, those feelings, or you may feel really excited, or you may feel very enthusiastic. Now, all those feelings come from the way I'm communicating to you. If you take an action, if you behave, like if you're actually entering something in the chat box, or if you take a call that, hey, this is so cool, I want to go and make a film tomorrow, or I want to learn more about impact filmmaking tomorrow, you have behaved in a certain manner. And that's the effect of what I'm telling you or how I'm communicating to you, right? Now, why this is so important is because there is a link to this. Communication induces a feeling, and a feeling leads to a certain behavior. And when you are a fundraiser, this behavior that you want out of the person who is in front of you is to donate. Am I right? You want that person to fund you. So unless you're able to say something or you're able to communicate in a certain manner that makes this person feel something, they're not going to behave the way you want them to behave, right? So this brings me to the next piece, which is really, what do you do as a fundraiser? You're in a conference room. Some fundraising conversations are like this, where you're presenting before a room full of people, maybe 5-6 people. Some fundraising conversations are one-on-one, where you've gone and met the CSR head of an organization. So there are different forms of fundraising conversations, right? Now just imagine you're in this room. Let's do a role play, okay? So I'm going to play the role of a fundraiser. So I'm in this room with a room full of people, and say I represent a particular organization. Let's take, for example, in this case, Ambuja Cement Foundation. I'm taking the liberty to be Ambuja Cement Foundation for a moment, because what I'm going to present to you, the film I'm going to show you, is a film that we worked with them on, right? So I come to this boardroom and I enter the boardroom and I say, hi, everyone. It's so lovely to be here. As you're aware, I've entered this room today because I am really keen on exploring an association with your organization so that we're able to create impact in the space of agriculture and livelihoods. And we have a proposal for you, and we have a detailed proposal for you. But before I really start talking to you about the proposal, what I'd really like to do is I'd like to spend about 2 minutes telling you a story. Why? Because I take a lot of pride in the fact that we at Ambuja Cement Foundation work with rural farmers. And the kind of work that we do with them has really enabled these farmers to have a life, have a livelihood, and have a decent, dignified way of living, which was not there earlier. So I want to use about 2 minutes of our joint time together to just show you the story of one such farmer. Her name is Saminder Bodgil, and she is a woman farmer in Chandrapur. She is very, very, very shy. So you'll see that in the story that we show you. She's very shy, but today she earns a whole lot of money by cultivating cotton. And we feel very proud because we've been part of that journey to help her cultivate cotton and earn a livelihood. So without much ado, I just want to show you that film, and then we can probably dive into our discussion. So I'm just going to play that film for you.
माझं नाव समिंदर बालाजी दुगे आहे. मी एक महिला शेतकरी आहे. मला 5 एकर शेती आहे. मला शेतीमध्ये उत्पन्न जास्त होत नव्हतं कारण शेती कोरडवाहू होती. मला शेतामध्ये 10 ते 12 क्विंटल कापूस होत होता. आमच्या गरजा पूर्ण करण्यासाठी आम्हाला शेतावर अवलंबून राहावं लागते. पहिला आम्ही कमाईसाठी बाहेर गावला कामाला जात होतो. माझी कमाई शेतीवर अवलंबून आहे. माझी शेती पाण्यावर अवलंबून आहे. एवढ्या पैशावर घर खर्च होत नाही. मला वाटत होतं की जागा आमची वेस्ट जाईल शेती तलाव केल्यानं, पण माझं मत चुकीचं होतं. आता माझ्या शेतात भरपूर पाणी आहे. आमच्या जनावराला भरपूर पाणी आहे पिण्यासाठी. आमच्या शेतात 18 ते 20 क्विंटल उत्पन्न होते. आता आमच्या शेतात गहू, ज्वारी आणि माशा पण टाकल्या. शेत तलावामुळे मला 2 उत्पन्नाचे साधन निर्माण झाले. आता आमच्या शेतात पाणी असल्यानं आम्ही बाहेरगावी कामाला जात नाही. आता आम्ही सोबत राहतो आणि सोबतच काम करतो. जास्तीच्या कमाईमुळे आता आमच्या पक्क्या घराचे स्वप्न पूर्ण झाले. पहिले ही शेती खर्चाला धडका होती, पण शेत तलावामुळे आमच्या जीवनाला नवीन दिशा मिळाली. ही माझी लाईफलाईन आहे. मला वाटते की सर्व शेतकऱ्यांनी आपल्या शेतात शेततलाव करून घ्यावे आणि त्यांचं उत्पन्न त्यांनी वाढवावं.
Thank you so much for your time, and I'm really glad that you were able to, watch Saminder's story, because what we really want to do is, while we've helped about 210,000 farmers in the last few years that we've been working in this space, by 2030 we want to actually help about 5 lakh farmers make a difference to their livelihood and to their life. And that's why I'm here today, because we're in the process of looking for partners, partnering with very meaningful organizations such as yours, and to see if we can really meet that target of 5 lakh farmers by 2030, so that not just Saminder Bodgil, but other farmers like her can really live a dignified life. So I'm happy to start my presentation. that was the role play. The reason I'm going to pause so that everybody can just take it in for a moment, maybe. And I'm going to read some of the comments. I'm going to read some of the comments here. So Snehanshu said, underused power, it's the key to everything. Communication shares knowledge. It's powerful because you can influence the opinion and instigate action. Thank you guys for getting the chat box going, because I'm already struggling by not being able to see all of you. So thank you for putting your comments in. Please keep them coming. Please keep them coming. So Yasmin says, yes, communication is powerful if feelings are involved. Absolutely. Snehanshu said, good point. While communicating, we forget donors and funders are also people. Thank you very much. So while watching a video, they also need a good video rather than more and more information. Absolutely, Snehanshu. In fact, I want to spend a moment actually talking about that. I think most often we forget that all of us are human beings with feelings. Whether it's a donor, whether it's a beneficiary, whether it's a communications professional, whether it's a fundraiser, we're all human beings and we are all made out of the head and the heart. So while yes, our logical brain wants us to see impact, right, as a donor, our logical brain needs numbers because we need to go and present it to our board and get that money. It's important to make your donors emote. It's important to, I think it goes without saying, and the story spoke for itself. It's important to make them see the story behind all those impact numbers. And unless we're able to find stories like Saminder Bodgil, I think we're not going to make as effective an impact with our donors as possible. So I think that's very important. So thanks, Snehanshu. Beautiful and effective story is what Aarti says. Thanks, Aarti. So I'm just going to show you another rendition of this, a different perspective. So while you saw the role play in a boardroom, what I want to now show you is something which is on a slightly different medium. So not a one-on-one meeting with the donor. So this is a one-on-one meeting. This is really a donor presentation, right? Or a donor engagement meeting. But how do you really start a conversation? How do you get inquiries? How do you get donors to find you in the right space, right? How do you get people, whether it's retail donors or institutional donors? So when I say retail donors, just any individual, or institutional donors like organizations, CSRs, multilateral, bilateral donors. How do you get them to look at you as an organization? How do you garner their attention? And I think the one thing that this is something I wrote a few months ago, because there are a few people in my team who used to be very upset that we're not very active on social media. And I have been active for the last few months. And what I realized through that is this: if you don't want to end up being a fossil, then remember that digital networking has taken over physical networking. Please type yes in the chat box if you agree. Do you agree that digital networking has taken over physical networking? If yes, please type yes in the chat box. I don't see us going to as many conferences as we did earlier. While that's not great, we'd like to go for conferences, but we are, as much as we are on a digital platform, we need to be visible. We need to be known. We need to be making some sort of an impression on digital media. If you agree, please say yes. Please say agree. Awesome. Thank you so much. Somebody said 100% agree. Somebody said yes, yes, agree. Awesome. So I'm glad you all agree, because that's really, the piece that I want to bring in next, which is really how do you tell these stories in an effective manner on social media? So yes, we can go to the field and find these beautiful real heroes. Yes, we can write these. You can hire an agency, or if you have a very competent comms professional, you can write these characters, right? You can actually go and create this powerful narrative, put it into script writing, coach these people, spend time on the field, create a really impactful film. You can do all that. But once you create that impactful film, how do you use it on digital media? How do you use it to have a conversation on the digital medium? How do you use it to ensure that people are inquiring about your project? So I just have an example for that. I'm just going to play a few videos, and I'm going to sort of group it with some social media posts so that you can sort of have an idea of what we're thinking.
माझे नाव सिंधू पाटील कुमरे आहे. मी सालेगुड्याचा एक कास्तकार आहे. मी पुष्कळ वर्षापासून माझ्या शेतामध्ये मी कापूस लावत आहोत. पाणी बरोबर मिळत नसल्यामुळे माझा कापूस तेवढं उत्पन्न होत नव्हते. आता ते उत्पन्न कमी होत असल्यामुळे ते आम्ही माझ्या घरच्या कुटुंबाला उदरनिर्वाह करण्यासाठी खूप कठीण जात होते. मुलांना शाळेमध्ये शिक्षणासाठी पाठवण्यासाठी कपडे लत्त्याचे सुद्धा मला खूप ताण पडत. पाणी खूप कमी असल्यामुळे आमच्या महिलांना दूरवर जाऊन पाणी कपडे धुण्यासाठी जावं लागत.
So imagine that video where Lingu Patil, a farmer, is talking about his problem, which is accompanied by this social media post. Lack of access to water posed multiple challenges to Lingu Patil, a rural farmer in Chandrapur. Watch this space to know how we at Ambuja Cement Foundation partnered with the local community to solve the water problem for Lingu Patil and his fellow villagers. So imagine this post that we just saw along with the first video goes on day 1, which is maybe a Monday. You let a couple of days pass. And after a couple of days, you start engaging the person who is on your social media because they've already seen this video. They're already curious to know because you've said, watch your space, watch this space for more. So they're already interested. You've garnered their attention. Once you garner their attention, you really have to now give them the next piece without much delay, but at the same time to keep them curious maybe for a couple of days, and then you upload the next part of the story.
माझ्या सालेगुडा गावामध्ये या डॅमच्या पाणीमुळे माझे शेतीचे उत्पन्न वाढले. गावच्या लोकांना सुद्धा शेतीचे उत्पन्न वाढले. अंबुजा फाउंडेशनने आमच्या सालेगुडा नाल्यावर चेकडाम 2007 मध्ये बांधून नेला आणि आमच्यावर सोपवून दिला. आम्ही त्यांची देखभाल करीत आहोत. आम्ही या बंदराची देखभाल करण्यासाठी पाणी वाहतूक समिती तयार केली. त्या समितीने या बंदराची देखभाल करत आहे. बंदराच्या पाण्यामुळे विहिरीची पाण्याची पातळी वाढली, त्यामुळे आम्ही 12 महिने आम्ही पाणी घेत आहोत.
Now, with that video, which is the second video that was uploaded maybe on a Wednesday, 2 days later, look at this post that accompanies that video. 42 check dams in Chandrapur, 482 check dams across India led to the increase in income through agriculture for Lingu Patil. The mantra for success, community ownership through Pani Vatap Samitis. Now we'll go on to, I'm just pausing a little bit after every video so that you all have some time to sort of process and take it in. I just don't want to do it in a big hurry. So imagine this happens on a Wednesday. Then on a Friday, just a couple of days later, you're able to publish your next video.
या बंदराच्या पाण्यामुळे माझ्या कमाईत 3 पटाने वाढली. आता मी गाडी घेतली आहे, त्यासोबतच शेतामध्ये पिकलं सुद्धा घेतलं. आता आमच्या महिलांना कपडे धुण्यासाठी तसेच जनावरांना पाणी पिण्यासाठी दूध द्यावं लागत नाही. आमचे जीवनमान या बंधाऱ्यांमुळे पूर्णपणे बदलते.
So imagine now that with that last video, where we've transitioned into impact, this is the post that accompanies it. At ACF, we believe that everyone is entitled to a higher quality of life. Lingu Patil and 516 farmers now live a dignified life. Join us in our mission towards creating 5,000 Lingu Patils by 2030. Write to us at fundraising or partnerships at ambujacementfoundation.com or .org, and let's have a conversation. So I'm not advocating Ambuja Cement Foundation. I know them very well. They're very, we've done some work with them, but I just felt it's a great case study to share, and they're a wonderful organization to work with. So what you saw here is, I'm just going to take a moment to recap. What we saw is video 1, which was just a very small snippet, less than 1 minute, accompanied by a post that focuses on the problem. Then you saw video 2, which moved into solution. So how can a problem be transformed to a solution, and how an organization such as ACF actually came to the rescue, created these check dams and made an impact. And then you see video number 3, again, a short, succinct video of less than a minute that's talking about the impact. So when I say impact, not just the solution, but how many people did we change the life of, right? And then a call to action clearly. So join us in the mission towards creating 5,000 Lingu Patils is a call to action. You're putting yourself out there and you're saying, hey, but I want to do more. I have an aspiration. Here is where we want to go. This is our vision. And then you're leaving them with an email ID or some contact details so that they can come back to you. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is, I think the biggest reason is this. If you don't want to end up being a fossil, then remember that digital networking has taken over physical networking. So it's absolutely important to be there on social media. I don't think there's any choice there. So that's that. And I'm just reading some of the comments in the chat box, and the world is opened up because of this. This conversation is proof. Thank you, Gopi. So the big question that I have is, do you feel a social media post like that is going to garner some kind of inquiry for a non-profit? If it's yes, then please say yes in the chat box, because I'm really keen to know if you think it helps have a better conversation. It helps create better communication. So please type yes in the chat box. It will be very encouraging. If it's no, then please type no in the chat box. If you think this doesn't make sense, type no in the chat box. So waiting to hear your yeses. I know there's a bit of a delay, so I'm just going to pause. Awesome. Thanks, Sushmita. Thanks, Gopi. Thanks, Anneri. Thanks, Vandana. Thanks, Ashita. Thanks, Yasmin. Thanks, Anthony. So thank you for your responses. I'm happy to take any questions. If you all have any questions, please put it right here in the chat box. As you keep your questions coming, I'm just going to share a couple of things with you, which are very, very important. One is, I just want to say that this conversation is not over. This conversation is ongoing. When I say that, what I mean is we're going to have, this is going to follow into a panel discussion on Friday. So this Friday on the 3rd of Feb at 9:30 a.m., we're going to have a panel discussion with some very, very interesting people from some very senior professionals from very interesting organizations like the Center for Catalyzing Change, from Engender Health, We have a representative from Japaigo and from Sneha, the NGO. So we have these folks in a panel where I'm going to be having a conversation with them on the power of storytelling, but not just the power of storytelling and digital and the audio in the audiovisual format, but also going to talk to them about the power of the audiovisual media even beyond storytelling. So the reason I say that is because we can't restrict ourselves just to storytelling, right? There's so much power in the audiovisual media. We can use it across digital platforms. So what I want to say is in that panel discussion, we're also going to talk about about using audiovisual media for learning, for skilling, for digital modules. We're going to talk about some very interesting pieces, and we're going to discuss some case studies and some live demonstrations, because we have these four powerful women. It's going to be an all-women panel. So it'll be lovely to have you all there. It's at 9:30. And of course, if you want to know more about this, if you want to dive deeper into this, if you want to just have a deeper conversation, because one thing I really want to say is I think filmmaking for fundraising is an ongoing conversation. This is just the beginning of a longer conversation. So if you want to know more, if you have a bunch of NGOs or a bunch of people, 20-30 people that you want us to come and talk to, take a session, we're very happy to do that. So you can write to us. Swapna and Shankar will put their Swapna and Shankar are from the VIVA team. They'll put their email IDs in the chat box. If you want to sort of know how you can tell a better story, if you want to sort of really try and engage into storytelling in filmmaking, if you want to tell stories for your projects, of course, you can reach out to us. Again, the same email IDs, they're right here. So just wanted to leave you with some of those things. Looking forward to seeing you on the 3rd of Feb. And I'm going to now just take the questions on the chat. So Yasmin asks, do donors look at media? Of course they do. Like human beings have feelings, donors are human beings. So of course they look at media. What sort of media? If you want to make that sharper, we can sort of understand. Social media, of course. So well, we've been, I don't know if this is the right platform, but I'll say it anyway. We are actually at our organization, we're launching a podcast, which is a complete digital media initiative, which is a conversation with donors, and is going to probably launch either today or tomorrow. It's going to launch this week. And the reason I'm saying that is we're doing that because donors are on social media. Please be on LinkedIn for those of you who aren't. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Swapna Shankar, if you can just share my LinkedIn, just so that you're in touch with this whole conversation around storytelling, around filmmaking for fundraising. Follow me on LinkedIn, and please reach out to donors on LinkedIn. They're all there. They're all there. So yes, they are on media. They are on social media for sure. Please do let us know how to join. Sushmita asks, I think that's about the, if you're asking about the session on the 3rd, I don't know. Anthony, is there a way we can put the link for the session on the 3rd here? Then if you can just put it in the chat box. Otherwise, it's very simple. You come on the interface. So you have like workshops, panel discussions, etc. So there's a Q&A. So you go to the section that says 3rd of Feb and you'll find the session. It's at 9:30 a.m. So you'll find it easily. Sushmita, I have your number. I'll just send it to you. This kind of post can work for individual donors, but what about institutional donors? Very good question, Abhishek. This is such a valid question, because if I had more time, I would have actually done a session that focused on individual donors and retail donors, which are, individual donors such as retail donors and institutional donors. You're absolutely right. The strategy as well as the communication for both of them are very different. So in terms of social media, I think the post that I showed you was in that sense positioned for an institutional donor, because we've said write to us. So when I say position for an institutional donor, what I really mean is it's about starting a conversation with the individual institutional donor. It's not about, you won't get the money on day one, right? It's a initial meeting, then go present a proposal, discuss financials, and so on and so forth, synergies with the donor, so many things. But what I really want to say is when you put something out there and say write to us, you at least are out there where inquiry is the first step. Somebody needs to be interested in your project. You need to be out there for people to know that your project exists. What if a donor doesn't know? So yes, this platform is very useful. So when it comes to institutional donors, this platform of social media is very useful to start conversations. To just leave your email ID, just make one statement, ask them to write to you, reach out to you, DM you, message you, etc. Right? From a retail donor perspective, again to answer your question, this can actually be used for direct fundraising. You can actually leave your link there, which is your United Way fundraising page or Keto fundraising page, and say, if this appeals to you, please click on this link and support a farmer. It just costs 2,000 rupees or whatever it is, right? So that's how you work with retail donors. So yes, I want to say that the strategies are completely different. It's really about how you communicate, what you say that can appeal to the different donors. But that's a session in itself. So just moving ahead, we will share direct link. Okay, thank you so much. Awesome.